I do think Madrid will have enough to beat Arsenal, but a two-legged tie against PSG could be really interesting considering the situation PSG are in right now.
Yeah, sorry. For the percentage, if Courtois plays 70%, it's going to be a 50-50. For me, it's all hinged on Courtois, who for me has been the best goalkeeper in the world for the past decade.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Clean Strike. Ali, Djibril and I are back after a little break, unfortunately. Schedule's not aligning, but we'll move through it. It is another Champions League week. It is the quarterfinals. It's getting to the business end of the competition now. I think we're all very excited. Just before we get into any of the games, guys, give us one word to summarise how you're feeling about the upcoming Champions League ties.
Yeah, I would say intrigued. Personally, I'm intrigued by...
Ali, it might be a little bit different for you, having a vested interest.
Well, I don't know what to say right now. Let's say that now I'm not pessimistic, but skeptical.
Yeah.
But let's see because Champions League is back, and that's always good news. Yes,
it is definitely good news. Right. The first game we're going to look at is Arsenal versus Real Madrid. Obviously, probably the tie of the round. I think the one that a lot of people are looking forward to. Arsenal have been on a bit of an upcline in recent years and have put themselves in a position to be back in a tie involving one of Europe's elite sides. So, Ali, why don't you kick us off? You say you're a bit sceptical of Real Madrid at the moment. Obviously, losing at the weekend to Valencia, 2-1 last minute winner for Valencia. Why are you sceptical? What scares you or makes you a bit nervous about Arsenal?
For me, the thing is that it's not only that Real Madrid lost last weekend against Valencia and they are and arriving after a lose, it's always like a Russian roulette for a team. But also for me, the worst thing is that the sensations that Real Madrid game. Because if you've seen last games of Real Madrid, some of the games they were played with a team that was lacking some essentials of the game. For example, they had no intelligence to read the game in some moments. They were like everyone doing the work by its own. So it's quite worrying that Real Madrid arrives to the Champions League a tie with this situation. However, we know Champions League is the best competition for Real Madrid. Champions League is the competition they love the most. It's like their biggest lover. So everything can happen in Champions League. And really, even though Real Madrid hasn't done a proper Champions La Liga games and Copa del Rey games on the last weeks, I want to see how they react when a game like this comes on big stage.
Yeah, it does always feel like they're made for it, aren't they? They're just made for the Champions League. You could be having the worst season of all time and you would never write Real Madrid off in the Champions League. Djibril, you were a bit mystic in the last round. I think you well, maybe not mystic, maybe I was looking at it a little bit biased, but obviously you were fairly confident on PSG beating Liverpool. What are your feelings on this tie, Arsenal-Real Madrid? Have you got a little bit of insight you want to share with us?
Yeah, this is the best tie of the round, as you said. I think it's the most blockbuster tie we had in this Champions League quarterfinals. I wasn't mystic. I think I just had a lucky guess that Liverpool was going to go up. For this one, I hope to be as lucky in guessing that Arsenal will go through. I think this is the first time Arsenal is facing one of the top three teams in Europe, which I would say for the past 2 decades in the Champions League have been Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Bayern Munich. Arsenal going into those games, usually we tout them as the underdogs. But for me, if you look at that season and Real Madrid's season, I tend to give Arsenal the advantage. The one thing to take into account is that Arsenal has a spine of world-class players, which wasn't the case in the past. When you have Saliba, Gabriel, Obviously, Gabriel's not going to play, which might be a big prejudice for Arsenal. But they still have Saliba, who arguably is the best young defender in European football. You have Declan Rice, who's world class, who's become world class. You have Martin Odegaard, who's undoubtedly world class, even though for some reason people are scared to say it. Yeah? I don't know. Does playing for Arsenal remove you from the world class? That's a question that we should discuss another day, perhaps. Bukayo Saka is world class as well, and we have reluctance to admit it, but he's world class. He's young, but he's world class. So you have a spine of world class players to take on a Real Madrid team who's showing signs of frailty in the past weeks, as evidenced by their last minute loss against Valencia. So for me, all of those factors and the fact that Thibaut Courtois is coming off an injury, we don't even know if he's going to start. It just everything seems to fall into place for Arsenal to create a major shock. Obviously, for me, the big question mark for Arsenal is going to be Gabriel. His absence. I don't know if you noticed this, but he's their vocal leader on the pitch. Usually he's the one ushering people around the pitch, saying, hey, you should stand here. And after a goal, he's the one telling them to focus back and going on to the game. So for me, his absence is going to be more than actually his defending abilities, but also his leadership qualities, because it's still a very young Arsenal team. But I give Arsenal the edge. I think probably a 60% chance of moving through ahead of Real Madrid.
Wow. Yeah. Just on obviously Madrid's frailties, a question to both of you. Do you think there's an element of, the Copa del Rey, they were maybe a bit surprised with how Sociedad performed? Maybe it just surprised them again and they just had to step up the levels. They did score 4 goals, which is no easy feat by any stretch of the imagination. But do you think maybe the weekend there was an element of there's a mind, their minds elsewhere? Like they obviously always turn up for the Champions League. Do you think there was an element of players like Bellingham, Vinny, Rodrigo, and just kind of going, well, look, we've got bigger fish to fry. We know we might not win the Liga. Obviously, a win would have kept them within a point of Barcelona after Barcelona drew. But is there that element? Do you think is there a bit of complacency in the league and a bit of we've got a bigger fish to fry?
To be honest, I don't think it was a matter of saying, okay, we are going to leave the league as a reserve, and we are going to focus on champions. I think it's more a matter than really, if you see pound by pound this Real Madrid squad, and you compare with the one on Valencia, it was completely superior. Yeah. So I think the thing is that sometimes the Real Madrid, I don't know, it could be that Real Madrid players have thought that maybe they were so superior to Valencia that they didn't need to do this extra effort to win. But however, we saw Valencia under the management of this Carlos Corberán, former West Brom Albion coach. He has changed completely the face of Valencia. He has now taking them out from relegation and stabilize them in the safe area of the league table. And if Valencia comes like this to Bernabeu Stadium and they are able to fight and even to win, they're going to try to do it, and that's what happened last weekend. So I think it's not a matter of thinking more on one competition or another, but it's a matter of sometimes concentration and focusing, and that's what Real Madrid missed, and that's something that in Champions League you cannot miss in any chance, because lack of concentration in Champions League, means elimination and means that you are out of the competition.
Yes, I just want to add something. For Real Madrid now, we have to talk about them actually salvaging their season, because La Liga, for me, in my opinion, in terms of the standings, they can't catch up to Barcelona. They've lost that. They bottled it in the weekend. It's all about now putting all your efforts in the Champions League and obviously the Copa del Rey. But the Copa del Rey can't salvage Real Madrid this season. When you're Real Madrid, you can't hang your hopes on winning the Copa del Rey to have a successful season. You need to win the Champions League now. It's not about reaching the semifinals or making it to the final. It's about winning it. Because if they don't win it, we know how it works if you're Real Madrid. Nobody is safe. I'm thinking about Carlo Ancelotti. Can he survive a season where Real Madrid has not defended the title in La Liga, has not won, potentially did not win the Copa del Rey, because the way Barcelona is playing right now, I give them the edge. And the Champions League, the top dogs I'm seeing remaining in the competition, I see them all potentially beating Real Madrid in the semifinals or the final. So for me, it's about salvaging the season now, And
But to be honest, I think I can give some small chances of Real Madrid in La Liga, because if you see Barca's play moment is about momentum and having the good times, because either when they have one bad moment or the coin doesn't go heads, Barcelona starts to suffer. And we are seeing also Rafinha has come back on a very bad shape after the international break. So that could be, I think, the reason that Real Madrid could have to fight for the league until the last match day. But it's going to be very difficult, to be honest. It's going to be, I agree with you, Djibril, that Real Madrid has now very few chances of winning La Liga. But I wouldn't say Barca has an easy, like a way of roses to win the La Liga title.
I said a couple of weeks ago, I think, in this preview, I think if I looked at one of the squads and I thought one of them might take the leap and win both this season. When I say take the leap, it's a bit different because obviously Madrid's squad is pretty established, whereas Barca's a bit younger. I do think Barcelona are the squad that will take the leap. I think that maybe it's just a Hansi Flick way. Maybe it's a bit more of the culture of the club. But I think Barcelona always play for each other. You look at their iconic teams. You've always had Iniesta, Xavi, that PK, Busquets. That's that core of that team played for each other. And even Messi. I mean, a lot of people claim they played for Messi and they kind of
an easy assessment, though. Yeah.
Yeah, but do you see what I say? They kind of always would tight knit, whereas Real Madrid has always felt like a very big. And look, if that's how you want to build your squad, that's how you want to build your squad. But it's always felt like a team of egos, a team of really, really good players. Who Perez is obviously very good at negotiating a contract or a good transfer fee and going to the manager, deal with it. And a lot of the time, you've got 5 or 6 of the best 10 players in the world in that squad, so it works. But I think that we're finding now, I think the Mbappe thing maybe is playing on it. I think a bit maybe Vinny's finding it tough out of the spotlight. Rodrigo seems to kind of have dealt with it. He kind of hit us and then he's back on the up trajectory. Same with Bellingham. But maybe if they don't win it, there's bigger problems there, and maybe one of them moves on in the summer. I don't think so. I think the only viable option would be a move to Saudi for Vinny with a massive fee, or a Premier League club coming in for Rodrigo maybe. But yeah, I don't know. I think that I do think Madrid will have enough to beat Arsenal, but a 2-legged tie against PSG could be really interesting considering the situation PSG are in right now. But yeah, Jimbo has already given his percentage of what he thinks, and he's given Arsenal 60%.
For the percentage, if Courtois plays 70%, it's going to be a 50-50. If Courtois plays, if Courtois doesn't play, and they play that young goalkeeper who played at the weekend, who's I think is very promising, but I don't think he's cut out for this level quite yet. I give Arsenal, I'm going to raise my percentage, a 70% chance of going through. For me, it's all hinged on Courtois, who for me has been the best goalkeeper in the world for the past decade.
Yeah. Alejandro, how about you?
I'll say 55-45 for Real Madrid, but also even though the absence in defense, even though the problems in the midfield, even though the problems in the forward, I don't discard that in this round, Real Madrid surprises us and shows a new magic trick. And for example, we discover such a talent. For example, one of the academy players, as we have seen, not with Raúl Asensio, but with Diego Aguado, Chema, or even Gonzalo Garcia, that we have seen on this season on Copa del Rey in some moments. So I wouldn't discard that some of the academy players appear and they give a masterclass or a wonderful game, and they appear, because also we have seen also in this Champions League that, for example, players that they were in part of Real Madrid, they use Champions League stage and they become key on Real Madrid. We saw with Militao 4 years ago, if you remember the Liverpool tie in the quarterfinal too. Yeah, Real Madrid arrived with a lot of problems in the defense. Real Madrid arrived in a panorama that everyone was saying no one is giving chance to Real Madrid. But Militao played in the defense, and he played perfectly. He made the perfect game, and Real Madrid won at home. So I wouldn't discard that we saw a masterclass of some of the most these bad called second unit players.
Yeah, I the other point I was going to say maybe is we need to just give a little bit to Arsenal. But I think that part of my thinking is that squad's been together for a few years now. I mean, they've obviously added a little bit to it. Timber's come in. He obviously missed last season with an ACL, but he looks like a really great utility player. The midfield's been kind of set. I mean, Marino obviously as the emergency striker has been quite impressive. But I think there might be, and I've got a few teams in and around, and it's not just Arsenal, but I think there is a slight mentality issue. I think that they are almost becoming the nearly men. They nearly won the Premier League title. Last season, they nearly beat Bayern Munich and went through to the semi-finals. Like they only lost 1-0 at the Allianz or in Munich, and they could have won at the Emirates, but all of a sudden they nearly won at the Emirates, so then they didn't win in Munich. And I do think that plays a part. You've got this Madrid squad, and Mbappe's the only one there that's not really won anything. Won the Champions League, and he obviously he's won the World Cup, but Bellingham, Vinny, Rodrigo, Modric, Camavinga, Militao. I mean, he's not there, but you've got all these players that just know how to get over the line in the Champions League, and I just think that gives them the edge. So I give it a 55-45 like Alejandro. I think
the weight of history.
They've just got that. Yeah, and I just think that plays on Arsenal because, again, as much as it saves Real Madrid season, it saves Arsenal season. I mean, as a Liverpool fan, the Premier League is far from done.
Oh, come on!
Everyone's saying it is, but a little bit of that's got to be in Arsenal's head again. We've almost done it again. We've almost got to the Premier League thing. We've almost done it in the Champions League. So, and that will change eventually, but I don't know if that's this year. I think if Atletico had won that penalty shootout, I think Arsenal would be viewing it as like this is the step. But I think all of a sudden you turn up and the white kit of Madrid is there. You go to the Bernabeu and you're like, whoa, like that's a team, But that's just my two. I do think Madrid will progress, but I can totally see where you're coming from. There might be an implosion for Madrid. So
I agree.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we should move on to the other tie of the night, which is Bayern Munich Inter Milan. Two very interesting teams, actually. Inter Milan intrigued me a lot. Bayern Munich in a slightly precarious position with a couple of injuries. Djibril, how do you see this one going? I'm very intrigued by this tie.
For me, the big, as you said, injuries. For me, Musiala, and people might disagree, is Bayern Munich's X factor in all games they go in. And his absence will be a big prejudice for Bayern, in my opinion, because he's one of the only players in that Bayern team who can take the ball, shimmy, dribble past, and progress with the ball in midfield, not from the wings, but in midfield. You can actually do that. So Bayern Munich, they're lacking a classic number 10. So they rely on Musiala's ability to run through the midfield to create those openings, because Olise is a number 10, but he's playing out in the wing. So Musiala is absolutely critical in the way Bayern play. His absence for me is the big element of intrigue. The other thing to take into account is Kane versus Lautaro Martínez. For me, those are, if I were to say the two most pragmatic strikers in Europe, I think those are the two guys. Those are the two guys who don't miss sitters, who don't miss the chances they should score. They are the two most efficient strikers, in my opinion. If they talking just the eye test,
maybe hard.
And when watching him every weekend, that's my assessment of it. And it will. If you are in a football academy and you're aspiring to be a striker, watch this game, because you're going to have two strikers on the opposite ends of the pitch who have always perfect movement, who work hard, and who are never fazed by these occasions. So for me, that's also something to watch out for. I do give Bayern the edge, though, based on what I've seen Inter Milan do in the weekend. I don't know, maybe their heads were turned, because Inter Milan, they suffered the remontada in the weekend, by the way. They were playing against Parma, a game they should have won in the context of the title race. I think their heads were turned to the Champions League. That's why they kind of bottled that game. Bayern Munich, they're coming into their own. I've been very critical of Bayern Munich since the start of the season. I've always said that they looked a bit suspect. Yeah. But as long as you get the wins, you can shut guys up. You can shut guys like me up. So they're progressing, and I actually see them reaching the final. Because for me, their squad is deep. And they have good balance there. For me, just the lack of number 10 and Musiala's absence is the thing that might hold them back. Inter Milan, their inability to score a lot of goals, for me, that's the big problem. They have the best defense in the Champions League, but can they score goals? Because you can't rely on 1-0 wins when you play against Bayern Munich. You can't. You need to be able to score multiple goals.
I would like to counter that with, I think, Inter Milan. I think a lot of good teams these days, free-flowing, passing, pressing, score a lot of goals. I mean, you're looking at City, Liverpool, Arsenal to an extent, Real Madrid, Barcelona. Inter Milan are a throwback. They are a classic, very regimented, right? The defence is here, the midfield is here, the attack is here. We win a game 1-0 and people do not score against us. That is Inter Milan.
First.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
So I think that may be a bit of a disrespect, but they are very much a throwback, and that is a lot of Italian football. A lot of Italian football is a strong defence is the best way forward, which it obviously is. I mean, you look at Juve; they've only lost 2 or 3 games in the league all season. They just haven't been able to score. I think, Ali, I wonder what your thoughts on this game are with Bayern Munich and Inter Milan. But obviously, Djibril was given Munich a little bit of an advantage, but I wonder what you think.
Well, I'm sorry to disagree this time with Djibril, because really we are not pondering what this Inter Milan has done in the last seasons in European football. We are talking about one of the most secure machines of Italian football. We are talking about a team that has a lot of automatisms and knows how to play. We are talking that they have one coach as Simone Inzaghi that knows how to play these 2-leg games very, very well, because at the end of the day, this is going to be a 180 minutes match, or even more if we include extra time and penalties. So really, for sure, Inter they are lacking in some senses such as goal. But in a game like this, I will say that we could have a very tight 2-leg games, because first of all, Bayern Munich, they are lacking a lot of pieces in defense. That's something Inter Milan could profit in, taking advantage of the situation of Bayern Munich in defense, and also Bayern Munich is going to lack the mastermind in the midfield, such as Yamal, Musiala. That's going to be, for me, a tremendous absence for Bayern Munich, and I want to see how they solve it, and I want to see how they deal with it. Also, Inter Milan comes the moment of the season where they know how to shine, and they know how to save forces and take the smallest advantage they can to the extreme level. So, in a tie like this, I would say 50-50. I don't see any one of these favorite. But the only thing that can change the destination of Bayern Munich and can give them a push to advance to the semifinals is the fact that the final is being played at home. So that could be the game decider. But if not, I will say 50-50 for both of the teams.
I think one thing to mention is, for me, it's going to be also the battle of the stadiums. The San Siro, the Allianz Arena. Which stadium is going to be the loudest to push your players, but also to intimidate the opponent? That's one thing maybe we don't talk about enough when we talk about the Champions League games, but for me, it's a big factor. It's going to be a big factor for a lot of these ties. Which stadium can be the loudest? Which stadium can be the most intimidating? So it's going to be a big factor. When we talk about Bayern Inter, it always takes me back to that Champions League final in 2010, where that was like peak football. We had the World Cup. It was a World Cup year, AFCON year, Champions League year, great final. Diego Milito scored 2 goals, I believe. It always takes me back. So it always has this element of revenge, perhaps, because Inter Milan kind of beat Bayern there. It was kind of a surprise. Yeah. Shout out to Jose Mourinho, by the way, who's not having the best of time right now. This for me, I'm going to give my percentage. I think I'm going to give Bayern Munich the edge. 60-40. For me, Bayern Munich, the way they play, Inter Milan, I don't know. But for me, don't expect a lot of goals in this game. Inter Milan, they're going to shut up shop and they're going to try to hit on the counter-attack. So it's not going to be the most exciting tie, football-wise, but there's going to be an element of intrigue for sure.
Yeah, I think you mentioned them earlier, Lautaro Martínez and Kane. I think one of them will be the match decider. I've long said I think Kane might be the best striker in the world currently. I think that in terms of, if I had to pick a player, you lined up the best 5 strikers in the world, and for example, just off the top of my head, you go Kane, Haaland, Lewandowski, Martinez, and give me another striker, and I'll throw him in there. But it's Kane. I pick Kane every time because I just think that he's not just a striker. He can do everything you want from a footballer. He is an expert passer of the ball. He's so composed from the penalty spot. He can probably smash a free kick in if you need him to. He brings the wingers into play. He brings the midfielders into play. I just think that he is the complete striker, and I have thought that for
maybe
a
that's the reason why he's not considered the best striker, because he does a little bit of everything and he drops deep and he cracks organized play. I always said that was maybe the thing that held him back from actually scoring more goals. And
the weird thing is he scores loads. Like, he could score so many if he just was like the 9. But when you've got him in your team, you kind of have to build your team around him. And part of that is how good he is at coming back. It's why him and Dele Alli were so good, because Dele Alli was so willing to go forward and overtake him. Whereas even now, a Musiala or an Elise wants the player in front of him to play the pass. So it works, but I think there might be a manager out there, and I don't think it's Company, who would be able to just flip it and just get that Bayern team just 150 goals a season like that. It would just be. Yeah. I think I am going to give it to Inter. I think that obviously Alphonso Davies is out as well, and Musiala, which I think could, because Alphonso I've said his name, completely butchered it there. Apologies. Alphonso Davies provides a lot of width coming down that left, and that allows Musiala to kind of come in. So I think, but only 51-49. I think if Kane can show up and kind of put in one of his Kane performances, then Kane could just decide where this tie goes. And it takes us on to Wednesday, which is Dortmund versus Barcelona, or Barcelona versus Dortmund, and it will see the winner of that will play Bayern or Inter. I think there's only one winner of this tie. I would be very surprised if there was a different outcome to what I'm thinking, but I'd like to know your guys' thoughts, of course. Barcelona Dortmund. Alejandro, do you want to kick us off on Barcelona Dortmund? Where do you think this tie's going?
Well, if you tell me that 1 month ago, Barça and Dortmund, they are going to face in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, I will say Barça is completely favourite for the game, because really, 1 month ago, we saw Barça with a strength in the game, adapted with some players such as Lamine, Yamal giving on their best moment of the season, with a team that looks completely compenetrated. But nowadays, I will give more chances to Dortmund, because really, we thought it impossible that Niko Kovac was going to be able to reassemble a team like Dortmund that was broken 2 months ago, and he did it. And he not only he did it, but also he has just rearranged them to fight for Europe in the Bundesliga. They have given them an identity to play, and also some of the players, they are performing on a proper way. For example, we are seeing Slotterbeck has become more safe in defense. Adeyemi is improving game after game. So really, it's going to be a very interesting tie, this one, Barça and Dortmund. However, I see Barça a little bit favorite. I will say 60-40 or even less, 55-45 to Barcelona. But I want to see how the situation goes, because if Barça gets in trouble and if Barça doesn't know how to solve an unexpected situation, Dortmund could have a chance to go to the semifinals. And really, it's something that I wouldn't discard, because with this Dortmund, everything can happen. It's like they are like a little bit, for example, like a Russian roulette. Yeah. It's a team that you don't know what to expect, because for sure, one day you can expect the best image and the other one the worst. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm giving 55-45 for Barça, but if Barca is not focused on the game and Dortmund gets the chances, it could be the opposite completely.
Interesting. Djibril, is that how you think as well, or are you just like
I agree with most of what Ale said. I'm just looking for reasons to believe that Dortmund is going to go through. I'm just looking for the little things. For me, one little thing that might make a difference in Dortmund's advantage is the fact that they are playing home the second game, the return leg. That might help them. Now, let's say Dortmund plays this game in Barcelona and it's 1-1. They go home, they can win 2-1, 1-0. You know, because the Signal Iduna Park on a European night, it's a dangerous proposition. It's a dangerous. No matter who you are, just ask Real Madrid. Just ask Real Madrid. So don't take it. Don't think that it's going to be an easy ride for Barcelona. Barcelona, this team is very, very young, and the players who hold this team together are also young. Pedri, Lamine, Yamal. And those players are bound to make mistakes or bound to have an off day, more so than the more experienced players. Like Lewandowski, we know he's gonna do his thing. Rafinha, all those guys. But the young players, they can have a loose touch here, a mistake here. We saw what Kubasi did a few weeks ago. Had a red card very early. He could have avoided it. So those are the mistakes that you make when you are not quite experienced. But obviously, it's a very talented team, and Barcelona should be going through. And if they'd go through, it's actually a catastrophe for them, because this is a unique opportunity for them to actually make the double. With the Liga being almost secured, in my opinion, and the Champions League, for me, they have a clear path to the final. I think Barcelona should take it. My percentage would be 70-30 in favor of Barcelona. Dortmund, though, I think it's the first time I've seen them this season actually put together a string of wins in the Bundesliga. I think they have two convincing wins in the Bundesliga. So they might be coming back into form just at the right time. The X factor, Adeyemi. Watch out for Adeyemi. How is Barcelona going to deal with that pace? He has a claim to be the strikers, the fastest person on that pitch on Wednesday. Yeah. And his pace is no joke, Adeyemi. So watch out for that. Watch out for Guirassy, who's probably one of the best goal poachers in Europe. And then they should be fine. I think the midfield battle, they have it pretty much secured. They're much more technical in the midfield than Dortmund. But up front, that's where you need to watch out.
Yeah, definitely. I think I agree with a lot of what you said. And I think I want to add to the point you said about the team being young, which I think could be the advantage. I think you look at Spain in the Euros with Nico Williams and Lamine Yamal, and both of them were just so prepared to do something. They didn't ever think, if I do this and it goes wrong, there's a big fallout, you know? And I think that is the advantage of having so many young players is Pedri is willing to try a pass that maybe a slightly more experienced midfielder might go, I'm not going to do that. Lamine Yamal is just prepared to do anything. He is the big game player. I mean, you look at him in the Euro semi-final, Classicos this season, he's just unfazed. Unfazed, that is exactly the word. He's just mercurial talent, I think, is how you describe him. An unbelievable player. And I think they'll win. And I think Hansi Flick being German and Dortmund wanting to be quite high tempo will suit them. Hansi Flick kind of is used to the German way of football, which is very high energy, and Barcelona play that way now anyway. I do think Barcelona will win. I think 70-30 because there's, as you said, there's always an element of like, what if Dortmund can take it back to Germany 1-1? All of a sudden it is a bit more of an open tie, but I do think Barcelona will blow them away on Wednesday. Maybe not blow them away, but 2 or 3-0 I could see quite easily happening. And then the tie's done. They've just got to have good game management, which again, even though they are so young, they have tended to have quite a lot this season. They get ahead in the Liga games and they never really look like getting pinned back. So yeah, I would probably, and I'd give Barcelona 70-30. And it takes us on to the last tie of the round, PSG, Aston Villa. Or Aston Villa, PSG. I can't remember which way they are, unfortunately, guys. But I think it's at home PSG. I think this tie only goes one way again. PSG obviously blew Liverpool out of the water. The first leg, they just battered them. First 25 of the second leg, Liverpool looked more in it, but PSG grew into it and never really I didn't feel like they were going to necessarily score, but there was the element on the break and how they control the ball, and they've just got a host of amazing players in that team. And yeah, I just think that PSG should only go that way, and I assume you think that as well, Djibril, unless there's a little bit more of an element of doubt.
I would love to sound edgy and say Aston Villa's going to take it, but nah. PSG is going to take this one. It's not going to be by a huge margin, not by any chance. If you need a headline for this game, it's very easy. Unai Emery, revenge.
Yeah.
Question mark.
Because
I started my journalism career when he started his stint at PSG in 2016. And I was of the opinion that the French press was very harsh on him, especially because he did the French quadruple in his second season. The first season, obviously, we knew what happened. The remontada, I think that's what kind of tarnished his legacy. That remontada he suffered against Barcelona, which for me was a critical tactical error on his part, the way he shaped up there. I think he learned from it, even though his experience at Arsenal didn't quite go to plan. I think they should have given him time, by the way. But yeah, for me, it's just about for him getting a revenge on PSG, even though he's not a vindictive person. I think somewhere in the back of his mind, he's thinking, these Qatari owners didn't give me time to put my project into place. I've gone on to be a successful coach at Aston Villa. I'm going to show them what I'm made of. And potentially, this is an audition for Unai Emery to get a better job in the near future. I know he's committed long-term to Aston Villa, but all eyes will be on this game, so it could potentially boost his profile. Aston Villa, and I need to say this, in my opinion, they made the best winter recruiting in the Premier League. The best winter recruiting. You brought in a couple of game winners like Rashford, Marco Asensio, Malin, who won't be playing, unfortunately. But there's Rashford and Asensio, they are match winners. They can take the ball at the 80th minute, at the edge of the box, unleash a shot that the keeper can't stop. So that's a very rare class of players that you need when you want to win these critical games, these tight games. So that's what I wanted to say about Aston Villa. The other thing I wanted to say about Aston Villa is 1982. They won the European Cup in 1982. So people who think that Aston Villa shouldn't be at this level, you're wrong. Aston Villa is a sleeping giant, an absolute sleeping giant. They won the European Cup in 1982. They're one of the really big clubs in the Premier League with a big stadium, big support. I think even the Prince William is a supporter of Aston Villa, isn't he? So it's like an absolute institution, this club, and it's a pleasure to see them at this level. We'll see. Obviously, I give PSG the edge. I give PSG a 60-40 advantage. Well, I use that percentage a lot today, but I give them an advantage. The final thing I wanted to add is PSG. They won the league in the weekend, and there's a consensus in France that this is the most satisfying league win of PSG since the Qatari took over like a decade ago. Because the way they've been playing, they haven't lost a game in the league. It's been just a bunch of young players actually progressing through the season, growing and playing good football. So this is more satisfying than when Messi won it with PSG. This is really a PSG team that everyone is happy to see win because they play the right way, they do things the right way, and the project is coherent now. It's taking shape.
Yeah, I totally agree. Alejandro,
more or less completely agree with what Djibril commented. For sure, Aston Villa, we need to remember, is a classical team, the ones that made the European Cup great in the 80s, winning that European Cup in 1992. But this is a new era, this is a new situation. For sure, Aston Villa will have their chances because remember that they have one team that is working now on a tremendous way with Marcus Rashford, that is another player since he moved to Birmingham. Also with Marco Asensio, that has become a key player after some shady moments in Paris. But I think that this Paris Saint-Germain has learned to be more competitive and more effective when it comes to play this kind of two-leg series. And I think this time they're going to get it. I give them maybe 70-30 to Paris Saint-Germain, because also this Paris Saint-Germain has learned to be more humble. That is something that they lacked in their last experience on the Champions League. So I give 70-30 to Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to describe them, actually, more humble. Just thinking about it, there was almost an arrogance about them that when they went out, it was like, well, we shouldn't have gone out, but it was like, well, no, you just didn't play very well, and this sort of thing. Whereas, sitting back now a month later or whatever it is, I can sit back and go, yeah, they were unbelievably good. They've got some very, very talented players in their squad. The one thing I would say is, again, Asensio, could loaning him out come back to bite PSG? Obviously, he's currently owned technically a PSG player on loan at Aston Villa. That's a nice narrative to look out for. And I will say there's one player I want you to look out for on Aston Villa, Morgan Rogers. I don't know how much of you've seen, but I think he might be the player there. He might be. I think that Rashford is great. Asensio is great. Yuri Tielemans is very, very fun to watch, but Morgan Rogers might be that guy who's just flipped into a different dimension.
I think he's very hard to plan for tactically, Morgan Rogers, because he's an all-action attacking midfielder who does a bit of everything. So for me, he's very hard to plan for.
I think he could be a classic 10. He could be a box-to-box midfielder. He could be a winger. Yeah, I think Morgan Rogers. But I do think that PSG will have a plan for him. They had a plan in the last round. But that does conclude our chat today on the Champions League quarterfinals. A very, very exciting set of fixtures, and then an even more exciting set of semi-finals will follow. I'm sure we'll catch up next week once this set is done, and we can analyse them a little bit, dig them out, and kind of look ahead to the next game. But again, Djibril and Alejandro, thank you very much for joining me for this episode of Clean Strike. I am looking forward to them as much as you are, I think. So it'd be great to catch up with you next week when we know the results. And great. Thanks, guys. Comment what you think the outcomes will be and who you think's going to go through. Who's going to win each game, who's going to win the tie. And even tell us who you think's going to win the Champions League. Now there's only 8 teams left. You've got a 1 in 8 chance of getting it right, so why not? But cool. Thanks, guys. Catch you later.
Thank you. See you.